Hey there, it's Coach Curl here, and welcome to Leadership Lessons, your hump day leadership boost to get you through the rest of the week. Today's lesson comes from John Maxwell's book, Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And from a personal recommendation, it's one of my favourite books from the best-selling author John Maxwell. So what do you learn when you fail? What do you learn when you fail? Often for many of us, we refuse to accept our own shortcomings. We refuse to accept our mistakes, our errors. But our mistakes and our errors also cause us some pain. And they also cause us to be lacking or limited in motivation. In fact, often we'll rewrite our motivation and use statements like, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Sometimes you lose. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So we'll just write it off because sometimes you're going to win and sometimes you're going to lose. Other times, for many of us, we hope to win, but actually have a bit of an expectation that we're going to lose. And then for the vast majority of us, we're going to sit there and accept whatever the results are going to be. We'll learn to live with those results. But along the way, we're losing motivation because of the fact that we are suffering what we would call some losses. And let's face it, some of those losses cause us huge amounts of pain. And often, because of that pain, we make a choice, whether it's subconscious, unintentional, whatever we may want to call it, we'll make a choice that we don't want to feel that pain again. We've had the loss, we've had the pain, and we make a choice not to feel that pain again. And often that's then replicated in our actions. Because maybe we just stopped trying as hard as what we could. We stop trying as hard as what we could. Our overriding thoughts become one of not to lose, as opposed to striving out there to make sure we win. So there's a different fundamental mindset there. That we don't want to lose, that we want to hold on to everything that we've already got, but we're not striving to reach that next layer of success, that next layer of growth. So we're working not to lose as opposed to we're working to win. But I want you to start thinking about this in just a slightly different way. When I listen to my mistakes, I grow. So take that on board for a second. Say to yourself, when I listen to my mistakes, I grow. That doesn't mean we're being consumed by our mistakes, but it means that we're taking time to reflect on our mistakes. And it's easy to say because at the end of the day, everything is easier to say than to do. But the ultimate thing here is that we've got to make some time for reflection. We've got to make some time for thinking. And think about some of the losses that you've occurred during your journey. Of course, they hurt. Of course they hurt. I'd be silly to tell you that they don't, because they do. It could have been a loss of an outcome. It could have been a loss of a goal. It could have been the failure to hit an objective. It could have been a loss of a job. It could have been a loss of a career. It could be the loss of a great client. It could be the loss of a friendship. Those are all losses, and so many more that hurt. Of course they hurt. And why do they hurt? Some of the reasons they hurt. These failures cause us to be emotionally hurt. We feel hurt. And sometimes when I've lost, there's been some tears. And I'm sure that I'm not speaking just for myself there. Sometimes when we lose, sometimes when we fail, sometimes when we stumble, the pain will be severe enough for us to shed some tears. Losses also cause us to become mentally stuck. We get rooted in the spot. We procrastinate. We really dither over what our next steps are going to be. We just get stuck, which then leads us to become mentally defeated, because if we can't get started, how can we get going? If we can't get started, how can we win? And we often lose before we even start because we tell ourselves, what's the point? And in many ways, what we see is this constant gap of what I should have done to what I actually did. So when we lose and we allow that loss to create the pain, which then keeps us in all those hurt, stuck, defeated, we get this gap between, oh, I should have done this, as opposed to what you actually did. And all of this makes us fixate on the loss. It makes us fixate on the failure. It makes us fixate on the mistake, the problem. So how do we move away from this? And that's the question. And once again, it's never an easy one to answer. We know what the question is. It's never an easy one to answer. And guess what? It actually requires some work and some action, some intentional action. Because it's so easy for me to sit here and say, you have to create a shift. You have to create a shift. But you do. And that requires work for you to do it. See, nothing ever is really a total loss if we've learned something from it. So let me just repeat that. Nothing is ever really a total loss if we have learned something from it. That's the key. We have to take our lesson. We have to look for our lesson, and we have to take our lesson, and we have to move forward. Losing gives us an opportunity to learn. But many of us don't seize that. Many of us don't grab that opportunity to learn. And when they don't, losing and constant losing really hurts. In fact, it sucks. Because we're not willing to learn from the loss or the failure. It sucks. So what does it do to create the shift? Now, I know at one stage in my career, I lost big time. I lost badly. And in all honesty, it took me 3 days of self-pity. The why me, the blame storming, all of this stuff that I was coming up with, feeling incredibly sorry for myself. Before the realization came that what had happened, firstly had happened. And it was a direct result of some of the stuff that I had done. A direct result. So I started to think a little bit different. What could I learn from this? What could I take away from this? And what was my next step going to be? I took the learnings and I moved on with purpose. And at the end of the day, it was the best thing that I could have done. It was the best thing that I could have done. It wasn't the only thing. So some people would say, that's the only thing I could have done. No, you had a choice. I had a choice. I had a choice that I could stay there in my world wallowing in self-pity from a big loss that I had. Or I could make the choice to take the lesson, take the learning, take the pain that it was, and start to move on with a bit of purpose, with a real belief that it was never going to happen again. I could have stayed in that negative state, and over time continued to lose. But what I did was move forward, and from that I learned, new opportunities opened up, and I'm moving forward and continue to move forward with purpose. I said farewell to the pain, and I moved towards the potential. And I did that simply by looking for the lesson. Simply by getting out of my own self-pity and looking for the lesson. So let me just finish today with a very simple question. When you lose, when you fail, what does that look like for you? When you lose, when you fail, what does that look like for you? Thanks for tuning in to Leadership Lessons. This Friday, I've got an exciting episode of the Today's Leader podcast dropping. A gentleman called Michael Arterbury from the United States. He has got some amazing stories. He was raised by an alcoholic father, and he chose not to be defined by his circumstances. And now he's a leading motivational speaker over there in the States. Drops first thing Friday morning here in Brisbane, Australia. I hope you can tune in. Until next time, I shall see you later. Bye for now.